Gender identity is a difficult subject for anyone struggling with it, and it's a struggle one Bakersfield teen knows all about, except this student is choosing to be neutral.
That started when I was a sophomore in high school, and it went until, just recently.
Ashe Chisolm is on a mission to change perception.
In the transgender spectrum, there's a whole lot in there.
Born a male, Chisolm no longer identifies as such. The 18-year-old BC student is non-binary transgender. Even Chisolm admits it can be a bit confusing.
There's trans men, trans women, but then there's also people like me who are non-binary transgender. And that just basically means that we're outside of the two-thing system, not a man, not a woman. You can be gender fluid, which kind of fluctuates between, or agender like me, where you're neither.
Instead of referring to Chisolm as he or him, non-binary people prefer they, them, their. Their identity not bound by traditional gender.
And the thing that really we want to get out about being non-binary is there's not a connection between sex and gender.
Chisolm settled on the name Ashe and non-binary gender identification 2 years ago. The biggest hurdle? Breaking stereotypes.
It was hard for me originally. It's not something that we're ingrained to think in this society, unfortunately. But we're working to change that.
And they're working to change laws. Last year, AB 1266 was signed into law, allowing transgender students to use facilities consistent with their gender identity. Non-binary people prefer gender-neutral bathrooms.
You're holding out that this bill is going to be repealed.
But now that law and the progression it represents is under attack. This week, a group proposed a ballot measure to restrict restrooms that transgender people can use. The Personal Privacy Protection Act would require people to use facilities in accordance with their biological sex in all government-owned buildings, including schools and universities. The proposal would allow people who felt their privacy had been violated by a transgender person who entered the restroom unlawfully to sue that individual or the government entity for a minimum of $4,000. The initiative could appear on the November 6th ballot if enough signatures are gathered.
And the struggle is horrendous. Often, many of these folks have been teased incredibly since the time they were very, very little.
Kathleen Ritter is a professor of psychology at Cal State who also has a private counseling practice for transgender clients. She says the struggle is very real.
I'm just sort of waiting for the day when people can learn to be much more tolerant of each other and not to put such a price on gender.
But it's getting better, and surprisingly, in Bakersfield.
There are many people now in Bakersfield who are transitioning, so there is some support.
There's a really supportive trans community here, and I see it growing.
But more than that, Ashe wants something simple, like everyone else: acceptance.
Transgender people are just like them, that we want our rights as much as anybody else, and we're not going to hurt you. We're regular people.
And another issue the transgender community is trying to change is Facebook. Right now, Facebook requires people to use their legal name. But a victory, says advocates like Chisolm. Facebook allows transgender users to select 58 gender options now, which includes agender.